The General Assembly will now hear an address by His Excellency Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, President of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
On familiar ground, Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad took center stage at the United Nations. But from the start, his speech was overshadowed by problems.
No translation.
More than 2 minutes into his speech, a major technical problem, creating confusion. But it appears that problem was fixed, and then this.
Ambiguities prevail, and justice is upheld.
And with that, the translation stopped altogether.
The interpreters would like to state that they are reading from a written text translated into English. Thank you.
While the president did have translation for most of his speech, a written copy has been provided to the media, and maintaining his position of blaming unjust and undemocratic governments was made clear yet again.
The first decade of the current millennium, although marked by the UN General Assembly as the International Decade for the Culture of Peace, was unfortunately marred with war, occupation, carnage, wandering, and intimidation. Fundamental reform of this undemocratic and unjust system to a fair and open one is essential.
The much-anticipated speech has now left many wondering what went wrong, as the Iranian president ended his speech the same way he started it, without any translation. Dorsa Jabari, Al Jazeera.
It was said that some 3,000 people were killed on September 11, for which we are all very saddened. Yet, up until now, in Afghanistan and Iraq, hundreds of thousands of people have been killed, millions wounded and displaced, and the conflict is still going on and expanding. In identifying those responsible behind the September 11 attacks, there were 3 viewpoints. First, that a very powerful and complex terrorist group, able to successfully cross all layers of the American intelligence and security, carried out the attack. This is the prevalent viewpoint, which has been supported mainly and advocated by American statesmen. Second, that some segments within the U.S. government orchestrated the attack to reverse the declining American economy and its grips on the Middle East in order to save the Zionist regime. The majority of the American people, as well as most nations and politicians around the world, agree with this view. Third, it was carried out by a terrorist group, but that the American government supported and took advantage of the situation. Apparently, this viewpoint has fewer proponents. The main evidence for this viewpoint links the incident with a few passports found in the huge volume of rubble. I would like here to propose that the year 2011 be proclaimed the year of nuclear disarmament and nuclear energy for all, nuclear weapons for none.
I have talked about the 2 conflicting outlooks prevailing in our world. One that is based on the predominance of its materialistic interests through spreading inequality and oppression, poverty and deprivation, aggression, occupation, and deception, and tends to bring the entire world under its control and impose its will on other nations. It is no longer possible to inject thousands of billions of dollars of unreal wealth to the world economy simply by printing worthless paper assets or transferring inflation as well as social and economic problems to others through creating severe budget deficits. The engine of unbridled capitalism, with its unfair system of thought, has reached the end of the road and is unable to move. The era of capitalist thinking and the imposition of one's thoughts on the international community, intended to dominate the world in the name of globalization and the age of setting up empires, is over. It is no longer possible to humiliate nations and impose double standards on the world community. It is necessary to delegitimize and reject any approach which views the realization of the interests of certain powers as the only measurement of democracy and uses despicable forms of intimidation and deceit in the name of freedom or democratic practice, and approaches that allow dictators to be portrayed as democrats, lack legitimacy, and should be rejected. The time has come to an end for those who define democracy and freedom and set standards while they themselves are the first who violate its fundamental principles. They can no longer be both, in fact, the judge and the executor, and challenge real democratically established governments. Such perspectives are baffling. Look at the situation in Iraq and in Afghanistan. It is no longer possible to bring a country under military occupation in the name of fighting terrorism or drug trafficking, while the production of illicit drugs has multiplied. Terrorism has widened its dimensions and has tightened its grips. Thousands of innocent people have been killed, injured, or displaced. Infrastructures have been destroyed, and regional security has been seriously jeopardized. And those who've created the current disastrous situation continue to blame others. How can you speak of friendship and solidarity with other nations while you expand your military bases in different parts of the world, including in Latin America? This situation cannot continue. It is all the more impossible to advance expansionist and inhuman policies on the basis of a militaristic logic. The logic of coercion and intimidation will produce dire consequences, exacerbating the present global problems. It is not acceptable that the military budget of some governments exceeds far larger those of the entire countries of the world. There are those who export billions of dollars of arms annually, stockpile chemical and biological weapons, as well as nuclear weapons, establish military bases or have military presence in other countries, while accusing others of militarism, and mobilize all their resources in the world to impede the scientific and technological progress of other nations under the pretext of countering arms proliferation. Reforming the current economic structures and setting up a new international economic order based on human and moral values and obligations. A new course is needed, in fact, that would help promote justice and progress worldwide by flourishing the potentials and talents of all nations, thus bringing well-being for all and for future generations. All through the past 30 years, we have been subject to hostile attitudes of those who once supported with all their might Saddam's military aggression and his use of chemical weapons against us, and then decided another day in time to take military action in Iraq to get rid of the same man. Today,